All right. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I am your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. You know it's true. I wouldn't say it if it weren't. I'm a podcast bro. We only say the things that are true. I promise. Cross my heart. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. All right, folks, it is another Friday. That means Dad Talk. Dad Talk Friday. How exciting, right? Now, if you're tuning into the show for the first time, or maybe like the second time, maybe you haven't seen a Friday episode, what I like to do, one of two things. I will either bring a dad on to discuss what is important to him in the context of being a dad. And we do that to raise dad voices. Dads are important. And so that's my way of just helping improve the society, our society, just a little bit, and say, hey, we don't have to beat up on feminism and women. We just, bring on dads and say, like, what's important to you? And we show the world that, there's a lot of good dads out there. And that's what we should expect. That's what we should hope for. And, maybe every now and then give the dads in your life a little bit of a pat on the back and say, thanks. So I try to do that. But when I don't have a dad, I just talk about something from the perspective as a dad or a man or a husband, right? Or maybe some variation thereof. And today, I reached out to a guy. I've been talking to him, and he's a relatively brand new dad, I think within the first 6 months. And I was just like, hey, man, you want to be on the show? And, just, the schedule didn't line up. So we might do it next Friday if the schedules line up. We'll see. But I wasn't able to find a dad. So here I am. You get me. And so I figured we would talk about two things. I'm going to talk about this post that I saw regarding sleep deprivation. Parents, you know what I'm talking about. Sleep deprivation. You understand that. I don't even have to tell you about it. You're probably sleep deprived right now if you're listening in. And then after that, I'm just going to kind of go over like, what does it feel like to be 700 episodes in? Because honestly, when I started out, I didn't really have like, I'm going to go until this number, or I had no idea. Like I was like, I'm going to just talk into a microphone and people are going to listen to me. That was kind of like, that's about as far as I thought it through. I mean, maybe a little further. So we'll talk about that. Let's start with what's got me going with this this whole sleep deprivation. And it's funny because I'm sleep deprived right now. Now it's not my kid's fault. It's my fault. Look, just because I'm 47 doesn't mean I'm full of maturity. I'm just like a lot more mature than I was, say, 20 years ago. That's all that means. Just more mature. Not like I haven't like reached some final stage of maturity. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But let me show you this post. So this post I saw going around, and a lot of people had something to say about it. And it was kind of interesting because there seemed to be two sets of comments. Parents that were, and I'll show you some of them in a moment. Parents who were like, yeah, it's totally worth it. And they, some way of saying that. And other people like, I can't believe these anti-natalists, and I'm like, well, this comes from an account titled World of Statistics. So it seems pretty generic to me. I think they were just putting this out there like, here's a stat that you may not know. And so it says a new baby usually deprives each of its parents around 350 to 400 hours of sleep in the first year. It got 1.1 million views, only 373 comments, 411, retweets or reposts, 3.8 thousand likes, 525 bookmarks. Sometimes I wonder about the bookmarks because, like, I'll see things and I'm like, what'd you bookmark that for? Like, I mean, I guess maybe people were going to come back to it. That's what I do sometimes. I'll bookmark something like, all right, I'm not going to mention it now, but I'll come back and I'll talk about it. So what did some of the people say about it? All right, so we've got only 1 hour a night because, like, if you do the math, 350 hours sleep in the first year averages out to 1 hour a night. So it's like, that doesn't seem so bad, right? Yeah, I feel like this stat may actually be wrong. Like, you're right, only 350 hours in the year. What, like there isn't I don't know. I guess maybe the first year, like toward the end of the year, you start catching back up and you get your sleep. But I don't think you ever catch back up to what you were getting prior. Not in the first year. And I'm gonna show you some. I'm gonna just hold your horses. I'm talking to myself, not really you guys. Anyway, Zuby says, and adds thousands of hours of joy. He's right. It really does. The worst moments we tend to look back upon and laugh about later. I actually responded to Zuby and I was like, I said something like, I was telling a quick story and I said something like, even the time that you're sleep deprived and it's tough, you look back and you laugh. And I mentioned that I will never forget, or, I will always laugh at the time that my son was like, I don't know, 3. He only knew 100 words. He didn't really know a whole lot of words. He wasn't talking like he is today with full on sentences. And he was sick. He had stomach bug. Okay. The stomach bug meant for him in that particular case that, we had some sheets to clean up. And so like in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., something like that, I hear, Daddy, poopy. And I was like, You're already tired already, right? It's not like I had been well rested up until this point. I was already sleep deprived. And then in the middle of the night, I hear the cries of a little voice screaming for me to come and clean up the poop that was all over. And it was rank. It was gross. It was disgusting. But here, I'll tell you something about that. Because what was interesting about it is, like, I wasn't excited to get up and do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not pretending like I was excited. I know some people are like, oh, I love, they act as if like every moment is the great. Like, no, there are moments that are not great, especially in the moment. In that moment, it was terrible. It stunk. I didn't want to have to do it. I was tired. Now I'm going to get less sleep than I already was getting. It was not fun. But there was something about being awakened at 2 a.m, somebody needing you, relying on you. Like, there's like this weird feeling. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, wow, this little guy needs me. I better get up and go do it. So I did, and I took care of him, and, it was rough and we got past it. But here's the thing. In the moment, it was not enjoyable. There was nothing exciting about it. But today I laugh. I'm like, remember that time? I was like, oh my goodness, that was so funny. And it's, it's weird how we do that, because we'll laugh today as if it was funny all along, and it was not fun. It was not funny. There was nothing cool about it. But he's right. It does add thousands of hours of joy. And even the moments that are unpleasant, many of those you laugh about later. So even those moments end up being joy, just later. That's all. What else we got? Worth it. 100% worth it. Parents. That this person's kind of like saying, like, this is what parents say. And it is true. There are a lot of comments where parents just like, they were like, oh, it was totally worth it. People were, posting a picture of them with their child. They're like, I couldn't imagine anything less, than this kind of a moment, that it was all worth it. So yeah, I mean, it was great to see that. Eric July, good guy, and it's worth it. New dad. I'm trying to get him on the show. So, if you're on social media and you follow Eric July, just throw it out there and just be like, Eric, you should go on DL's Dad Talk. Zuby too. Just kind of drop that in there randomly. Like when they're talking about something unrelated, just be like, hey, have you been on Dad Talk? Just do that. Like whatever. Just keep doing it. I'm going to keep reaching out. We'll try to get him on the show. I like this account, Daughter of Wolves. She has some interesting things to say. And she says, it's interesting to me how we never see statistics like this for clubbing or collegiate partying. It's never working late, just X amount of hours per day takes away X years of your life. Or by the time you die, you'll have spent X years of your life at the office. And she's got a point. Like, you see these stats about like children, and I think it makes younger people a little bit apprehensive. But I think what we should probably tell them is like, by the way, you probably will go to college and you will probably be sleep deprived, and you will have done it to yourself because you were partying or you were studying hard, or maybe you were doing both, right? And you're sleep deprived, you're bleary eyed, you're trying to make the exams, yada, 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 and you power through it. And then later you look back and you're like, wow, it was all worth it. I got this cool degree, right? Like that's what parenting is like, but even better, because you're actually living a continual experience, right? Like, now I don't have a college degree, so maybe I'm speaking out of my arse, okay? But my impression, just watching others, people don't look back 20 years later and say, man, this life that I'm enjoying right now is all due to my college days, and all that sleep deprivation was totally worth it. But I believe parents do that regularly. I'm 7 years in and I'm like, yeah, all the rough moments that I had to go through to get to where I am today, totally worth it. Totally worth it. But I don't think people do that about other things. Maybe they do it about work, right? Maybe when they retire, they're like, whoo, I'm retired. All those hours that I spent on the job, making money and investing and doing this and that, it was totally worth it. Now I can live life as an old person and hope not to fall down. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go there. But, it's a really good point. Let's see what else we got. I've lost nothing and gained everything. That's right. I mean, yeah, I get it. Technically, actually, yes, you still lost sleep, but a lot of this is how you perceive it. Like when you're looking at it and you're like, how do I feel about it? Well, I don't feel like I've lost anything. Yeah, technically I did lose a lot of sleep, but I didn't feel like it. I mean, at the time I did, but today, when you have all that gain, the happy memories that you have with your child, a kid that loves you, et cetera, it just kind of, you look back and you're like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. I literally felt like a zombie the first year, but it was worth it. Man, I tell you what. So look, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Don't be mad, okay? The first couple of months, somewhere in there, somebody asked me, they were like, isn't he adorable? And I said, no, he is not adorable. He is a monster. Now, I didn't mean it I wasn't being mean-spirited. I was just being like, yeah, I'm sure to you he's adorable because you're sleeping. I'm not. You're not trying to figure out which of the umpteen things that cry that sounds the same, because that's how it is initially. Initially, all the cries sound the same. I'm hungry. I need my diaper changed. I would like a hug. They all sound the same in the beginning. Now, eventually, you start recognizing, you're like, oh, he's hungry. Oh, he's this. Right? You get it. You learn them after a while. But at first, you don't know because you haven't heard them. And so you're like, I don't know what he wants. And so you're like, let me change his diaper. Nope, diaper doesn't need changed. Oh, well, let me see if he's hungry. Nope, he's not hungry. Let me try to burp him. Oh, that's not it. Let me just hug him. Nope, that's not it. Oh my gosh, I'm running out of ideas. Right? Like that's kind of what it's like. And then when you do it when you're sleep deprived, it is kind of like feeling like a zombie. You're just like going through the motions. I have a friend. She's a single mom, and I'm not dogging on her. That's just relevant to the story here. So she has a child, and she was saying when he was a baby, she was so sleep deprived one day that she walked into a wall. and she was more sleep deprived than, like, say, my wife and I, because there's at least two of us to try to split this up, right? And for her, there was only one. So she was even more sleep deprived, probably, I'm assuming, than we were. And it's funny about sleep deprivation in different people. I normally function somewhere, my sweet spot is somewhere between like 6 and 7 hours of sleep. That's my sweet spot. And my wife is more of a 7-8 hour person. And my wife was like, when we were in the sleep deprived mode, she was like dog tired. And so I was like, no, that's not how I like to say it. I like to say I was dog tired. And so therefore I could only imagine how tired she was, right? Because if I'm tired and I normally survive on 6 to 7 hours and I'm tired and she generally wants more, and then, that means it's probably impacting her even more than it is me. But again, the zombie thing, like, if you said, DL, if you took it all back, you could take it all back and start all over, would you? Yes. Would you change anything? The poopy one, I might, maybe. If I could, make that not happen. I'm torn. I really am torn on that. Because, look, I don't want to go through it again. But it's one of those memories looking back where I'm like, yeah, it's kind of fun to look back upon. I kind of like that. It's funny. I like telling that story. I can't wait till my son is a little bit older and I can tell him the story and we can laugh together. He could be like, ha ha ha. He'd laugh at me. So would I take that back? I don't know that there's anything that I would take back. Maybe some of my anxiety, if I could, maybe not have that. That would have been nice. But otherwise, no, I think we're good. The poopy thing is a contender. That's up there, but I don't know. I might have to keep that one just so I could have the memory of it. Let's see what else. I'm pretty sure it's way more hours than that, but 100% worth it. I agree. I think it's, I read a study that said something like parents are sleep deprived for the first 6 years. Now, it doesn't say like how much, it just says, it was just saying like, hey, for the first 6 years of your child's life, you are sleep deprived. And I'm like, oh, he's 7. I can get my sleep back now. Except for now I'm like podcasting and I got a full-time job. I got a family. I got things that I want to do. You know what happens? You just sacrifice a little bit of sleep. You stay up a little late because you're like, man, I've been working so hard. I'm just going to watch this movie tonight. And then you stay up a little bit too long. And then you're like, but I still got to get up in the morning for this podcast or for work or whatever. So, now I'm sleep deprived of my own accord. I mean, it was before because I chose to have a child, but like he was the driving factor of that sleep deprivation, where now it's me, my decisions are explicitly driving the sleep deprivation. All right, and here's the last one. Sometimes I miss 350 hours of sleep in 1 week because of the kids. It's still worth it. That is true. Now, obviously, yeah, I get it. You're not probably missing 350 hours. Matthew's making an exaggeration here, right? But there are times, there are weeks where you lose way more sleep than you have in past weeks. And that's just the way it goes. And you're struggling. You're like, there's not enough coffee in the world. I need like 14 Red Bulls. But if I drink 14 Red Bulls, I might start having heart palpitations. That's not good. So you're on the struggle bus. And at the end of the day, I can't say it enough. It's totally worth it. Now, speaking of sleep deprivation, I want to play a video clip. This is of my friend Ben Weir, who was on episode 417. And I think he was like 2 weeks in. I don't know what went on through his head to jump on a show like 2 weeks into having a baby, but he did. And I want you to just see the very beginning of the show, because this kind of sums up what it's like being a parent. Here it goes. So please welcome Ben to Dad Talk. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm extremely tired. My baby's just over 2 weeks old, and you can probably tell by my eyes. Like, I swear to God, I'm not doing drugs. It's just I do not sleep right now. So
I totally get it. So folks, before the show, that was like the first thing that he's like, dude, I'm not high. Like, I'm not tired. Oh, that was hysterical. And it was so funny because like I clicked the button for him to join the show. And literally he did the first thing. He's like, dude, I'm not high. I was like, oh my gosh, this is hysterical. And his eyes were so bloodshot. He looked like he had been up partying all night long. And I'm sure there was no party to be found anywhere in that house all night long. I'm sure that it was just cries and, okay, let me cycle through all these things. Do you need a diaper change? Do you need a hug? Do you need a bottle? Do you need whatever, right? And then baby probably slept for like an hour. See, that's the funny thing that they don't tell you. Like, they do kind of tell you this, but they're wrong. People will go, when the baby sleeps, that's when you sleep. Who are you people kidding? When the baby sleeps, that's when you... Like, I remember trying to do that. He would take a nap for like an hour, right? And I'm like, oh, this is my chance. And I would lay there. And I was so tired that I couldn't fall asleep. And then, right as my body was like, okay, I guess we'll let go. We'll let you nod off for a few moments. It would be at like the 58-minute mark, So you're like, just fall. Your head tilts back, and then your eyes close, and things are starting to fade. And you're starting to relax. And and you're like, for real? For real? No. I was just there, right there. It's like in the movies when somebody dies, like it's like a cartoonish thing, like where they die and they're starting to see heaven. They're like, oh wow, this is so great. And then all of a sudden they get pulled back to earth and they're like, what in the world? What? No. Right. Like that's kind of how it felt. You're slipping off to heaven. Ah, finally, a little bit of sleep. Then those cries say, nope, Just kidding. So I wanted to show you guys some, I went and looked up some of the posts that I made around the first few months, just to kind of give you an idea of what was going on in my head. So luckily I documented it. So let's take a look at some of those and we will see some of the things I was saying. So this comes from Facebook. So here I go. This is February 12th. Okay, he was born on February 8th, 2019. And I said, baby Zach update. Zach is a quick study and in less than 4 days time has learned how to express dissatisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10. He tends to initiate at 1, skip 2 to 7, and make it to 10 with only a brief stopping at 8 or 9. He's an overachiever already. His mom and dad would be proud if they had the energy. He would be like that. He'd be like, ah, and then just be like, ah, ah, and you're like, whoa, bro, you skipped a bunch of numbers here. You skipped levels. Just like, just jump right on over them. It was funny. Let's see, this one comes from April 16th. I'm learning babies, at least mine, have a sixth sense to just know when you're trying to do anything remotely productive. For instance, this post, a solid 10 or 12 minute effort. How so? Baby Zach only likes to be held in such a way that requires both hands. Any deviation to hold a phone, read a book, or anything, and he gets fussy quickly. That's true. Like he was like that. You'd just be like, all right, I'm going to grab this book and read it while he's sleeping because I can't sleep because I'm holding him. And he'd be like, excuse me, bro. What? You thought you was going to read a book? No. That's not how this works. Right? That's how it was. Let's see what else. This was funny. Started reading Baby Zach his first big boy book. Going to take quite a few nights to get through it all, but we'll do it. And then it's a picture of George Reisman's The Benevolent Nature of Capitalism and Other Essays. You know, look, I know we're supposed to do baby talk and read these dumb little books. I didn't like doing that. I really didn't. And I wasn't like, I'm going to do this to make him smarter. I was just being very selfish. I was like, I don't want to read these dumb gaga goo goo books. So, and I didn't want to say gaga goo goo to him. So I didn't really do that too much. And so I tried to read this book. It didn't really go that well. I also tried to read 1984 to him. And by the way, when I was doing that, I had to stop because I was like, this is a lot more gritty than I remember the first time around. I was like, maybe we shouldn't. But there's actually a picture of him, me and him, and I'm like reading the book 1984. Let's see what else we got. Day 2, this is day 2 of a baby Zach and daddy weekend update. My wife, I think she had went out of town for a couple of days. And I said, my normal voice has about a 50% chance of making Zach cry. You can literally see the moment he is unsure of the tone and just goes with the negative. Smiling makes no difference, and he can go from smiling to crying in a mere moment. However, falsetto pleases him and may even calm him after getting upset. So if you catch me speaking like a moron, it's to please the little crown. And that was true. Now, again, I didn't do it a lot, but I did do it sometimes. But most of the time we just try. We're like, hey, buddy, what would you, do you need a bottle? Do you need a pacifier? Do you need a diaper change? It's like I would talk to him like an adult. And honestly, I think because I approached him more like an adult than like this little goofy baby stuff, I think that's why, and we dragged him around also to places with other adults. I think that's why today people are like, wow, he is so well behaved and he can communicate and have conversations with adults. And I'm like, yeah, it's because we just sort of treated him like an adult. That's kind of what we went with. Yeah, and again, I'm not pretending like I had this all worked out and I was like, this is how we're going to do it. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't. Like, I have 7 years of experience under my belt, and that means nothing for the next few years, right? Because it's like, the 8th year is going to be, we're going into the 7th year now. That's going to be different than the first 6. The 8th year is going to be different, right? There's just new stuff constantly. And when he's like 14 and 15, that'll be different than when he was like 3, right? Completely different. So it's like I've acquired all this knowledge for nothing. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm continually learning, and it's okay. I'm good with it. What other updates we got here? So June 21st, this was like several days after my birthday. I said, who needs video games? Every night, I do battle with the samurai sleep fighter, a continuing saga in 3D pitting will against will, savage tears versus determined responsibility, shrill squalls versus soft hushes, and progeny versus progenitor. In the bedroom at each eve's end, 2 may enter, yet only 1 may leave. I was trying to be funny, you know, like I think I accomplished it. It seems a little humorous looking back. And then here's the last one. I guess I went full parent, shifted to getting up at 5 to 5:15 a.m. in order to be productive. Baby Zach refuses to sleep any earlier than about 9:30. Once put down and fully asleep, it's 10 to 10:30. By then, I've too little energy to be productive. Don't know if it will stick, but seems to be working for now. By the way, this was in June of 2019. By the way, I will point out, it has stuck, but it did bounce around a little bit. So, because like his sleep schedule would change on me. So like, it would be like, he would be waking up at like, say, 6 o'clock every day for like weeks. And then I would adjust and I'd like, all right, I'm going to adjust. And I would, you know, maybe I'll get up at 5. And then all of a sudden he would be waking up at like 5:30. And you're like right in the middle of me trying to be productive. And then and it just, he would stay up later, whatever. And then, again, this is when he was a baby. So like he did what he wanted to do. I know they're like, oh, you just sleep. I'm sure there's like a pile of moms out there on mom Twitter, right? They can be rough. And they're probably like, well, you didn't sleep train your baby. And you're like, you're right, I didn't. Because I was too sleep deprived to train anything. Like, what in what world was I in any condition to train anything? I was being trained, okay? I was surviving. That's what I was doing. And so, you know, but then eventually, probably around 3 or 4, I think that's when he started settling into his more consistent sleep routine. And his sleep routine still changes from time to time. So like what I just recently told him, I was like, look, if you wake up and daddy or mommy aren't there saying, hey, wake up, buddy, go back to sleep. Because like lately he's been getting up at like 5, right? Or he was like the last few days, he's back to like somewhere around 6:30, 7 o'clock. And so what I try to do is I try to wake him up at 6:30. So he has plenty of time for him to come downstairs, you know, play with some of his toys a little bit, eat his breakfast, get dressed for school, brush his teeth, all that good stuff, right? And so that's plenty of time for him. He doesn't have to rush if we get him up at 6:30. He can pull it off at about 7, but you kind of got to rush because he's 7, right? And even though you might have enough time, 7-year-olds are interesting because it takes them like 20 minutes to do anything, you know, functional. You're like, hey, put on your shoes. And they're like, okay. And they go to put on a shoe and then they see something shiny and they're like, start playing with it. And you're like, hey, put on your shoes. And you might have to tell them like 3 times, right? Just because they get distracted. You know, it's not that he's not listening. He listens very well. It's just he'll get distracted. He'll walk toward his shoes and find a toy along the way and then grab the toy and then just be like, oh, I'm going to play with the toy now. You know, and he's not like, he's not ADD or anything. He's just a kid. That's just what he does. So 6:30 is the prime time. And so for a while there, he was getting up at like 5:30, 5:45. And I was like, buddy, you know, because what happens is if he's had a big day, like let's say he wakes up early and then he's got a lot of events, like maybe he goes to school and then he goes to like, you know, jujitsu, and then he goes to Cub Scouts right after that. Sometimes, you know, and then he's done homework in between. Like it's a big day for him. It's a lot of effort. And so by the time nighttime comes, he's like dog tired. And then when he gets really, really tired, yeah, that's when things start breaking down. That's when he starts, he looks at something and the papers turn the wrong way and he just starts crying, or like the dog comes up and she sniffs him and he's all like, why is he sniffing me? And you're like, son, take it easy, buddy. It's okay. So, but it's overall, being a parent has been the most exciting thing that I've ever done. And I'm going to tell you, I've done some pretty exciting things. Some of them I shouldn't have done, but I've done some pretty exciting things. I've lived a pretty full life. And I'm telling you, my son is the most exciting thing that's ever happened. Right. And I know it's a weird thing to say because you're like, well, what about your wife? Yes, but perhaps I should say it this way. Getting married and, you know, meeting my wife, getting married, that was one major excitement. And then having a child is another one. And I'm not trying to place one above the other, right? But there is something uniquely different about building a life with an adult versus building a life with a child, because the dynamic is just completely different. With the child, you're trying to be the leader, and for a while you're not really leading anything, you're just being led. And then as the child gets older and they can start understanding things and comprehending stuff and responding, then that's where that leadership really starts kicking in. Now, I know somebody will probably argue and say, well, you can sleep train them, you can do this and that. I get all that. But from my perspective, you're mostly being trained. Like, yeah, maybe you're doing some training along the way, however that might look, but you're still being trained. Because when that baby wake up at like 5 a.m. and you're not, you were hoping they would stay asleep till 7, there is no, hey, just go back to sleep. I could say that now and maybe it'll work, right? Or maybe he'll just lay there and try to go back to sleep, But when they're a baby, yeah, they're not like, oh, is it too early? Daddy's not here. I guess I'll just go. No, they don't do that. They just wake up and they're like, ah, or maybe they're laughing. They don't always scream. So it's been an absolute pleasure. I highly recommend it. And I would tell anybody that if you're hesitant because you're like, I'm going to be tired. Look, just do it. I promise you, you will look back and you will laugh. You will look back and you'll be like, oh, why was I so afraid of that? Why? I can't believe I was so frustrated about that. Or I can't believe I felt this was like the worst thing that was happening, because there are some, depending on the experience you have, it could in the moment feel like the worst thing ever. Like if your child gets hurt or something like that, and so, it depends on what it is, like I remember he was crying so bad one night and he seemed to be extra angry. And it's possible that I was just so tired that I was misreading. Because, I'm not exactly the baby whisperer. Okay? And so I woke up my wife because we were doing like this shift thing that we had worked out. And I woke up and I was like, there's something wrong with him. And what I meant by that was like, not like, he's defective. I was just like, there's something out of the ordinary. And so at my behest, at like, I don't know, midnight, 1 a.m, we drive over to the hospital, and looking back, what exactly was I hoping they to do? I don't know. I just was like, something's not right. That's all I could say. And so we went to the hospital, and he's still screaming, crying, wailing and all that. And this is one really got me, because they don't tell you that baby breathing is erratic. And if you're not prepared for it, and you're the slightest the type of person that's the slightest bit prone to anxious or anxiety, being anxious, man, I tell you what, this will get you, because it got me hard. It got my wife, and she's not, like I'm the one that's a little bit more like, oh my goodness, right? I'm the, like flipping out a little bit, and she's the more rational one in these kind of matters. And we have a friend that's an ER doctor that works later in the evening. So she was actually just coming off shift. And so we had called her up and we're trying to, get an idea of like, okay, are we just flipping out for no reason? Or is there, does it seem like there might actually be something wrong that we need to go to the hospital? And we're like in the hospital parking lot. And he's crying and then he's breathing really fast. And then all of a sudden he just stops breathing for like 10 seconds. Now, if you hold your breath for 10 seconds, you're probably like, yeah, that was no big deal. But if you're a tiny little baby who's already got you freaked out, if they stop breathing for 10 seconds, you are going to be like, what in the world do I need to? You freak out. He's like, I freak out. I was like, wait, why is he not breathing? And then my wife, Christy, she was like, why is my baby not breathing? Like we were flipping out. And then he started breathing again. And it's like, did you do that on purpose? You trying to kill your mommy and daddy already? Right? It was rough. It was so rough. But again, in the moment, these were not pleasant experiences. right? It's not pleasant to think that your baby just stopped breathing on you while you're holding him. There's nothing pleasant about that. But today I can look back and just have a nice laugh and be like, wow, yeah, that was amazing. So all in all, I would encourage people, you'll read things, if, having a child will keep you sleep deprived. Yeah, so what? Lots of things keep you sleep deprived. This one thing will bring you joy, immense joy. It will more than compensate. The joy that you get more than compensates for all the frustration because it outweighs it by so much, it's not even worth comparing. It is the greatest thing ever. So I recommend it. And if you need to, if you don't have a kid and you're like, how do I prepare? Here's what I would tell you. I would tell you, if you're not exercising, go do that. Go exercise and get yourself plenty of sleep, right? And you might say, well, why is that? Because you're not going to be doing that. You're right. You're not going to be doing that. So build yourself up so that you have a little bit extra stamina so that when that baby comes, you have built yourself up to be in a position to tolerate that just a little bit better because anything helps. So that's the only thing I would recommend. Just if you're not exercising, start exercising. Not a week before baby come because that's too late. But if you let's say you got a wife, let's say you got a girlfriend. I don't recommend necessarily having children outside of wedlock. But if you have a significant other and you're thinking about getting pregnant, that means you got 9 months at least. Okay, start exercising, start eating right, and start getting plenty of sleep. Do those 3 things to kind of prepare yourself for however many months it's going to, that baby is going to take you through the ringer because they will. And the more you have to give at that moment, the better off you're going to be. Give in terms of, hey, I've been well. Because if you go into having a child and you're sleep deprived and you're eating like crap and, all that stuff, you haven't been exercising and all that, it's just going to be a little bit rougher for you. That's the only thing I would say. Let's go on. Let's check out some of these comments here. Let's see. We'll look at some comments real quick, and then let's see. Where are we on time? Yeah, we're good. So let's see here. Let me move. I want to move some screens around here, and let's see what we got here. Howdy, Liberty lovers. Good morning to you. Difference between parenting and late night studying. Maybe you have a little life depending on you. Failing a test, very bad. Right. There's a massive difference, in the two. But all I'm just trying to say, and I think that was something Wolves, all that I think we're trying to say is that we go through life with sleep deprivation in other areas and we think nothing of it. And then sometimes people are like, oh, but having a child, well, yeah, but the child is so much more rewarding. In my opinion, a child is way more rewarding than going to college. And it's not to say that college isn't rewarding. I'm saying more than. I'm comparing. I'm saying one is way more than the other. Hands down. Let's see. I've not been a parent, but taking care of little ones. That's a good way to get an idea of what it's like. Now there's a lot there that's missing, right? Especially if it's not your own. It's way different. If you think... it's way different if you think something's wrong with your baby than if you think something's wrong with somebody else's baby. Now, you still may panic, but it's just a different vibe for sure. And I think that's it for the comments. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about 700 episodes. All right? So let's do that. Let me see. Where's my intermission here? We'll be right back.
Let us make man. This is the scripture where God was talking about creating the human. And when he talked about creating the human, he said, let us make man. And for me, the us in let us make man entails and implies to me that I should be assisting God with making men. And this is where the X for Boys comes into play. This is the new man-making machine in Albany, Georgia. We started the X for Boys program in January of 2019 Albany, Georgia is one of the poorest cities in the nation, and also Albany, Georgia has one of the highest crime rates in the nation. And so I took it upon myself to curb that by working with young men and boys in the community and teaching them how to work in the skilled trades, such as working on cars, fixing houses, simple home improvement, simple brake repair, oil changes, plumbing, anything of that nature, to try and help boys actually use their hands.
I appreciate King Randall for taking the time out of his life to give us young men the opportunity to do things that can help us be better men and better people in life.
The X for Boys is creating men that'll be self-sufficient, that will be able to protect their women and children, and will be able to go out and earn things for themselves. We do not teach victimhood. There is nobody holding us down. I am teaching the boys that they can go out and get whatever it is that they want when they want it to. They have the same Father as Jesus, and that is God. And so they are able to go and do whatever they want to. The scripture says, greater is the God that is in me than the God that's in the world. So it's up to us to teach them about the God that's in themselves and to create everything that they want. Let us make man. Follow us on social media at New Emerging King, and you can go to the xforboys.org for our website.
All right, we are back. I love that account. Yeah, I think he goes by New Emerging King online. I think that's the name. My wife actually ran across one of his one of his video clips the other day, and she was like, "Have you ever seen this?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I love that dude. I actually present him on my show sometimes. I advertise for his organization because I think it's so great." If you're not familiar with him, what he does, like he said, he just goes around and he teaches boys about everyday life. So the video she saw, he had a bunch of boys and they were at a gas station, and he was instructing them on how to understand, the different ratings, like what is it, like 87, 91, 93, something like that, the octane ratings. And then he was also, just kind of giving them the rundown of here's how you pump gas. And the interesting thing in there was he was telling them, this will make this makes some women out there mad, but he was telling me, he's like, we don't allow our moms and our girlfriends and our wives to pump gas. We're men, we go do it for them. Right. And I'm like, yes. Now, that doesn't mean that a woman never, ever, like if you're a dad and you have a daughter, yes, you should teach her how to change a tire, and you should teach her how to pump her own gas. And then if you have a son, you teach him, hey, chivalry, son, do certain things for your lady. That's how you keep them, right? That's how you get them. That's how you keep them. I don't care what the feminists out there say. All right. They're wrong. Like every married man out here will tell you that he didn't get his wife, but maybe not every, but most of them will tell you, I got my wife from doing manly things, saying dumb jokes, being foolish and trying what they call a simp now. That's how I got her. So anyway, hey, a great account. If you come across him, give him a follow, maybe even donate to his organization. I really love it. All right. So let's talk about 700 episodes. I'm going to only talk about this for maybe 10 minutes. There's not a lot to talk about. Okay. It's hard work. That's what. It's a lot of hard work. And I'll tell you the most surprising thing about being 700 podcast episodes in. I would have thought by now I have it all figured out. And yet, even still earlier this week, I was running into audio problems. It feels like there's just a constant battle. Audio problem, the driver decides it doesn't want to work or something, and you got to try to figure it out, or you accidentally clicked a setting and you don't realize it, and you're looking everywhere else but that one particular setting. That happened the other day when I was having an echo on here, and I was like, why is there an echo? And I was like, this is weird, because I would talk and then I was getting a split second echo in the background, and what was happening was, the audio, I'm not going to try to explain it, but the audio from the microphone was the way it was being routed ended up on a second channel, but it was just a second after. So it was creating an echo. And I was like, it was really so weird. And it turned out that I'd accidentally clicked on a setting, because I know I hadn't done it on purpose. So I must have accidentally done it and I just didn't realize it. And so, I'm just like, but that's knowledge now that I have going forward. So if I hear that again, I'm like, oh yeah, I already had that experience. But I would have thought by 700 episodes, I'd have this all down pat. And if you're doing podcasting delayed, so you're recording your podcast ahead of time, you're editing, you're getting it all cleaned up, and then you publish it, well, then a lot of these errors and these mistakes, they stay behind the scenes. But if you're live streaming on a regular basis, well, then guess what? Everybody gets to see all the errors. Like sometimes I'll show up and I'll have everything set up except for maybe one video wasn't queued up. And so then I go to play the video and I'm like, oh, I don't have this video queued up, or I don't have the image that I was going to show on the screen queued up. And I queued everything else up, but I forgot this particular one. And I've tried to automate and streamline things, but there's only so much you can do. And sometimes you just forget. So that's probably the most frustrating thing, is that I feel like I'd be like a pro at this. I could just wake up, just jump in and like, bam, 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 click on things. And here I am, just yapping away, giving you guys some great content to listen to. And then there are days where I wake up and I'm just not on my A game. I feel like I'm fumbling around with my words. There's a lot of ahs and ums and whatever other filler words that I use. It just feels like I'm rambling. And when I say rambling, I know some people are like, dude, you're a podcaster. That's literally, but I don't mean rambling in terms of like a rant. Rambling is in like, if I want to say something and it should take 10 seconds, I say it over like 2 minutes, because I'm drawing everything out and I'm maybe doubling back on my words, whatever. So there are times when I'm not on my A game and I have yet to figure out how to bring myself back into A game mode when I'm not there. So that one I'm still struggling with. Another thing, and this, I feel like if you're going into podcasting, you just have to get used to this. You will. I feel like you're going to always, if you're trying to grow and you're a smaller channel, you will, I don't want to say always, we have to be careful with our absolutes, but you will inevitably have at least one or two times or several times where you're doubting yourself. You're like, I feel stagnant. I've plateaued. My numbers aren't rising. I've been doing this. I'm 700 episodes in. I don't have millions and millions of viewers, And that's the whole point. Now, maybe you're a little different. Maybe if you started, you're just like, look, I'm just going to do this. And if I have 1 follower, 1 subscriber, that's great. If I have 100, that's great. If I have 1 million, that's great. Right? I don't look at it that way. I appreciate everybody that pays attention to this show, that listens in. I appreciate all of those. And I also simultaneously have a goal of, I would like to grow this channel, this show. I would like to have more people watching it. So I'm constantly evaluating, my numbers and looking at what I'm trying to do. Like, am I accomplishing what I'm hoping to accomplish? And that requires looking at, are people watching? And then trying to figure out, okay, if they're not watching, why not? And is the content boring? Is it delivered poorly? What's the deal? And you don't get a lot of feedback, or you do get feedback and it's halfway to mean-spirited, or just completely mean-spirited. I've had a few comments in there where people are like, dude, this guy's boring. You just, they basically are telling me to quit. And I'm like, all right, well, thanks. But even then, you can try to get some insight out of it. Even when people are being mean, sometimes there's a little nugget of truth in there. And so if you can get past the idea of, okay, the way that they said this, they were a total jerk about it. However, there's a little bit of truth to be found. So I've had people say like, dude, this is boring. You're terrible, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I'm like, okay, well, you said that pretty mean-spirited, but was I not delivering very well? Maybe I need to look at that. Maybe I need to change how I do things a little bit, and it's just a constant struggle. And so you have to try to figure out where you want to be and what is it that you need to do to get there, and I've, like, if I were to go back and grab all the pictures of all the changes to kind of represent all the changes, there'd probably be 50 different pictures of, different layouts, moving things around. The monitor's over here. Now it's over here. I got a different mic. I got a different, stand for the mic. I've got different equipment. I'm using different software, to help out. There's just like all these different changes. Some of them were minor. Some of them were major. And I just keep going. But I do it, and I continue to do it because I look back at what I've accomplished, and my metric for whether or not I keep going is, am I happy with what I've been delivering? Not in the sense of, am I happy? Could I have done it better? Because I think you can always do it better, right? How does that saying go? There's the speech that you prepared, the speech you gave, and the speech you wish you had given, right? And they're all going to be different. So after every episode, I could be like, all right, I prepared, and in my mind, it was going to go one way, and then I delivered it, and it went a different way. And then after both of those, I look back and I say, how would I have liked to have given it? And then there's that one. And it happens for every single episode. So what I try to measure is just, am I happy with it? Am I glad that I talked about this? Am I glad that I came up with this idea and expressed it? And then I go, okay, if I'm happy with the content and I'm happy having done it, now I can look back and say, am I happy with how I did it? And then you can apply this to anything. Your job, you can apply, maybe not like when I'm looking and saying, am I still happy with doing it? That might lead to, okay, I'm no longer happy doing this. It's taken up a lot of time. I don't enjoy it. Maybe I don't want to do it anymore. Some things that doesn't work, right? Like if you have kids, you can't look back after 7 years and say, am I really happy being a parent? Because you signed up for this for the long haul. Podcasting and other things, though, you can bail if you need to. And so I constantly look and say, do I need to bail? Am I still producing something that I like, that I enjoy doing? And so let me put something up on the screen here for you. Because, let's see here. Here it is. So I posted this the other day. And I said, I hit my 700th, I should have said but I hit my 700th episode next week. Oh, no, that was written correct. Wild ride. 30 dads on Dad Talk, and I don't think it's exactly 30. 20 LP leadership candidates, 50 plus political candidates, 100 plus reviews of legislation, executive orders, and court rulings, debate reviews, culture, libertarian principles, and more. Here's to not slowing down. And so I look back at the body of work that I've created, and I'm like, I am very happy with this. And I'm sure if I go back and I watch some things, I was like, ooh, I might cringe and go, who is that guy delivering in that way? And that's the nature of it, right? I heard somebody once say, when you do your first episode and then you do your 100th episode, and then you look at the difference between those, it's like miles. Because you just get better at it on many things, many fronts. You get better at delivering. You get better at selecting your content. You get better at how you present it, like the ideas and how you formulate it and the structure. You get better at maybe the equipment that you have. You improve with the equipment. You maybe get a nicer microphone. When I first started out, I don't know if people know this or not. When I first started out, I had a cheap headset. That's all I had, and an inexpensive laptop. And I opened up Audacity and I was like recording, and then I listened to it and I was like, oh, no, that's not going to work. So then I went online and I was like, all right, I'm going to be kind of in it. I don't want to put a bunch of money into this. So I bought I think it was like a $50 microphone. And at the time I didn't know anything about microphones, and it showed when I bought it, because I bought it and I got it, and I would record, and in Audacity, it'll record the left and the right, stereo, right? And so I would notice that when I was talking, it would sometimes, like the left would have some audio and the right would not, or vice versa, or both. It was just really inconsistent. And I was like, what in the world? And I didn't have like, my editing skills weren't such that I could compensate for that. So I was like, I was like, this is weird. And I was like, maybe if I talk to the microphone differently, turn it or something. And so I was like trying all this weird stuff. And finally I just said, all right, let me get rid of it. So I sent that back, and I think I bought a Yeti Blue at the time. And then a Yeti Blue was a lot more consistent. There's reservations on whether or not that makes a good podcast microphone, but for introductory level, it's fine, in my opinion. Or it was maybe today. I mean, this was like 2019 when I started doing this. So Perhaps things have changed dramatically, cheaper, better, et cetera. So that's part of the learning curve. And this is going to be how it works in anything. When I started learning web development, I had to learn a whole lot of things and immerse myself into it. And I had to make a lot of mistakes. And I continually make mistakes. And the idea is really not that you'll never make any mistakes. It's that, how does that woodwork? There's a woodworker I like. I like watching his channel. And he says something to the effect of, in woodworking, it's not about the mistakes you make. It's about how well do you hide those mistakes? How well can you correct those mistakes? That's the important part. Because he points out, he's like, you always will make mistakes. And these guys are good. Like some of the guys that I watch, they are very, like the one guy that I'm talking about, his name is Jonathan Katz-Moses. And I'm pretty sure his business is in the millions in terms of valuation. Right? Like he's got, his shop is ginormous, ridiculous. And he fabricates some of his own stuff, when he comes up with new ideas of like accessories to help out in the workshop. He comes up with all these great ideas, and then he goes to production and he produces them himself. He's got like a line of like 3D printers and stuff like that. And so he has a ginormous business. And him and other people, Bourbon Moth and some others, I watch them. And these guys, they build some phenomenal stuff. Just absolutely way above my skill set. And yet they're like, yeah, we make mistakes. It happens. And they'll talk about it. They'll be like, yeah, so here I was with this piece of wood and I went to cut this and I didn't realize I made this mistake. So then I had to start all over, or then I had to do this or whatever, right? And so they're very honest and they'll tell you about it. And I think that applies with everywhere. So it does give me a little bit of hope that, hey, you're 700 episodes in and you're still running into problems. It's okay. It's about how you fix your problem. It's not about the fact that you made a mistake. It's how you fix it. And so I do that. I try to make sure that I keep that in mind. I also tell my son that. Because like he gets really frustrated when he's trying to do something and it's not working. And I tell him, I'm like, it's okay, buddy. And I show him that video clip. I'm like, hey, this woodworking guy, because he likes watching some of the woodworking videos with me too. And I'll be like, remember what this guy said? He said, it's not about making mistakes. It's about how you correct the mistakes. It's about what you do with that, because you're always going to make a mistake. It's okay, right? You have to face that challenge head on and then overcome it. And that's how you get to 700 episodes. And there's challenges everywhere. There's challenges when it comes to, trying to monetize. That's what I'm doing right now, trying to monetize, and it's tough. And there's only so much hours in the day to work with, and there's always more to do. And sometimes I have to just be like, I'm done working for the night. Yes, I could keep working, but at what cost? Is this gonna affect me tomorrow? I have to function tomorrow. It's not like a child where you don't really get a choice. So you have to make choices. Sometimes things they don't happen. And that's the way it is. But I constantly am evaluating what I'm doing and trying to streamline it, trying to improve it, trying to make sure that, I'm delivering. And let me tell you something about this. I have enjoyed having every single dad on the show. I have enjoyed interviewing all of the candidates, whether they're for internal party positions or whether they're political candidates running. I have actually, strangely enough, I have enjoyed all the bill reviews that I've done. And I'm constantly looking at every single one of those and saying, how can I do better? How can I make this more engaging, more interesting, but at the same time, delivering what I want to deliver. So like when it comes to my reviews of legislation, I like to do a little bit more of a deep dive. Well, it's challenging to do a deep dive in short order and make it interesting. It's not hard necessarily to do a deep dive and make it interesting, but it does require more time. Maybe you want to have some graphics on the screen or something like that, or whatever, however you want to explain it. You might have to write up a script and then review it and say, yeah, I got to pull this line out because this line is, this drags the momentum down or whatever, right? So you've got all these things that you have to try to do. But when you're trying to do it on short order, and what I mean by short order, if there's a bill that's being talked about, like when the SAVE Act was being talked about, well, I wanted to get in on the conversation while it was happening. So I had to read it. Then I had to just figure it out. And then I had to be prepared to talk about it, within days. So I didn't have a lot of time to sit there and edit and rethink it and write up a script and, maybe send it to somebody and have them review it. I didn't have any of that stuff. I have to just do it. Just do it. And then look back later and then try to figure out, okay, how do I make this a little bit more interesting? How do I make this more compelling to people so they go, man, I'm going to make sure to tune in every Monday for Liberty Dad's bill reviews. Because, man, that dude, he's not a lawyer. Maybe he should be. But, man, he has some great insight on this stuff, right? That's my goal. So let me tell you what happened about a week and a half ago. Let's talk about candidates, political candidates. I'm going to be honest. I like being forthright on my show. There have been a few times in the last couple of weeks where it's within an hour of the show. I've got a candidate coming on and I'm just like, I don't feel like it. I don't want to do this right now. And it's almost like I'm looking for a reason to get out of doing the show, a legitimate reason. Now, I'm not going to just be like, I don't feel like doing it, so I'm not doing it. Because that's pretty shady. I mean, if you've committed to something, then you should do it. And I try to always follow through on my commitments. And so I was kind of going up and down about it because I just was like, is this, how much is this helping? But then somebody said something. So I almost always end up talking with a candidate on the show or after the show for a few minutes. And I was talking to one candidate. I'm not going to tell you who it was. And they said to me after the show, they said, wow, this was the best show that I've ever been on for running. And I was like, wow, thank you. Right? That was an amazing thing to hear. And it was like right at the right time to hear it. Because I was just feeling a little bit bummed out. I was like, I don't know, I feel like, because I was like 680, 690, I don't know. It was somewhere around. This was like a week and a half ago. And I was not quite to 700. It's on the horizon. And I'm looking at some of my numbers and I feel like it's plateaued a little bit. And the political space is very saturated. Everybody's got some, and some of these guys, they're doing it for a living. And so they have more time, they have more resources, they have maybe a team that's operating, so they, like they've built their business or whatever over time. And I'm just like, here I am struggling. And I'm like, all right, well, the worst thing you can do is compare yourself to somebody else for a variety of reasons. But in this particular space, I would say one of the biggest reasons is that it's really about your personality. And a lot of it is also about your commitment. You're willing to just outlast everyone and everything else. That's a lot of times what really drives success. Are you willing to be in it for the long haul? Can you be in it for the long haul? And so it was timely to hear that. And I've heard other people say, like, hey, thanks for doing the bill review, stuff like that. I get compliments from time to time. And look, if you know anything about podcasters, many of us, perhaps most of us, maybe even all of us, I'm sure there's a few humble ones out there. Most of us have egos, or at least a lot of us do. And you want that ego fed. But at the same time, I'm trying to actually build something of quality. So I cannot let my ego get into the way. And I have to recognize that, yeah, it would be nice if after every episode, it was so brilliant and so well done that people were just praising me left, right. Wow, that was such a great, I learned so much. Yeah, that would be great. I say that now, but honestly, if it actually happened, I would probably be like, okay, it's a little too much, guys. But when you're not getting it, you kind of want it. But what you can't do is let that be your focus. You have to focus on what is it that you're trying to accomplish. And I'm trying to accomplish building a brand, delivering quality show, and then delivering quality content. And I feel like there's something here. And so I will keep going because I feel like I still have more to contribute. And frankly, I look back and I say, I'm happy with these episodes. And I feel like, look, the bill reviews, I think they're gonna kick off. I just gotta keep finessing them, keep working it out. You know what I mean? It is 7:30 in the morning, and sometimes I do read from a piece of legislation. Like, really? Like, that's crazy talk. Like, if you're not a Supreme Court justice or a lawyer, you know, preparing for a big case, chances are you don't want to read legislation at 7:30 in the morning. So I got to figure out how to make it entertaining. And I'm not really the scripted entertaining kind of guy. Whenever I try to do scripted comedy, it just flops bad. It's so terrible. So it makes it even more of a challenge. But I'm up for that challenge, right? I think there is something to my dad talk. I think that's gonna grow, and people are gonna really appreciate it. And dads are gonna want to be on the show more and more. And they're gonna be like, yeah, I just want to talk about. And they talk about. I let them talk about whatever that is important to them. It's not me driving it. I just say, all right, you're a dad. You've got something to say. What do you want the world to know? And the whole goal of that is that we bring dads into this frame of mind where we respect them more because we understand what they're thinking. We understand why they're doing what they do. There's a lot of content out there that seems very anti-men and also anti-women. I'm not for it. I am pro-man, pro-woman, because this is the Liberty Dad Show. We're going to focus on dads. Some woman out there, she can set up Liberty Mom if she wants. We won't be connected. So, you know, don't worry. It's not like a work wife or anything. But that's what I wanted to say about 700 episodes in. It's been an absolute joy with a lot of frustration. In a very similar way that it's been an absolute joy to have my son with some frustration. I won't say a lot of frustration. There's been some here and there. And in both cases, when I look back, I'm glad that I did it. With my son, I will always be glad. And I will look back fondly on every single memory. And that's a good thing because I'm not getting out of it. I mean, I know technically I could go out for a pack of smokes. No, not doing that. I'm a man and I keep my commitments. I'm a man. I signed up for this in the long haul. And most importantly, I just love being a dad. The hell, like, he's stuck with me. Son, if you're watching, can I zoom in on this real quick? Let me see if I could zoom in on this. Let's try to zoom in on this so that, you know, he gets the point here. I'm gonna zoom in here. All right. There, I'm zoomed in now, son. We're looking. If you're watching this, son, you ain't getting rid of me, boy. All right, how do I get this back to normal? Let's see. Let's figure that out. There we go. All right, there it was back to normal a little bit. So, all right, so I'm in it for the long haul. Podcasting, I will continue podcasting until such time that I feel like I do not have anything left to offer, right? Or if I start seeing myself slip and just say, you know what, I'm just not, like, no matter how hard I try, I am slipping. So clearly it's time for me, you know, it's time for me to put the headphones down. Right? I did that with the Libertarian Party chair. I was the chair of the affiliate, and I noticed that I was not doing as well as I previously had done. And I was like, I think it's my time. I think it's time for me to step aside and give the reins to somebody else, because you should only really be, for things that you have a choice in, you should only do them as long as you can deliver. And if you start slipping and you recognize it, you first try to correct it. But then if you realize, hey, my heart's just not in it, well, then maybe it's time to sit down and say, should I be doing this any longer? With the exception, again, of being a parent. That one, you're in it to win it. All right. Let's see what we got in the comments here. Live chat. Looks like it's D function liberty. Just kidding. It says FN. And I've been teasing her because I'm like, what's FN stand for? Like function for now? And like, it's DF for, it's DF in liberty. Right? So, FN, you get it? Like a little wordplay. She says, but for some reason, every time DL is on another podcast, he always drops jokes. You know what? I think I know why. I think I have an answer for that. I am bouncing off the energy of other people. Here, I'm like talking about serious topics. I'm like, here's this legislation. And the problem is, when I prepare for a show with legislation or I'm talking about a topic, I literally will review things and I'll write stuff down and I have my notes. I'm preparing. Like I said earlier, I don't do prepared comedy so well. I've tried it. I remember one time I tried to make a joke in a speech, and I had it prepared. I prepared. I said it in front of a mirror. I had what I thought was going to be the delivery down pat. I made that joke, and it was just crickets. And I was like, damn it. So I don't do so. The jokes, if you're wondering where the jokes are, a lot of my humor, when I'm actually good at it, is off the top of my head. But then I have to be careful, because what comes off the top of my head can sometimes be inappropriate. And I try to keep this show family friendly, because I found it frustrating a long time ago trying to listen to podcasts and people were like, F this or F that, which is fine. Like, I'm not giving you guys a hard time. But when you got like a 2-year-old in the back seat and you're driving, the last thing I want him to learn is how to say F this and F that, before he said, I don't know, I love you or something. So I try to keep it family friendly so that people can listen to the show and know that if their kids are around, no big deal, right? That's the only. But when I'm off the show, like, I'll cut up and carry on just as well as anybody else. And sometimes my humor can go a little too far, right? Like, I will make jokes and people are like, whoa, you took that a little far. That was a huge leap. But that's why you don't hear a lot of jokes on here, because I'm busy preparing and having all my thoughts kind of worked out for the most part. And the difference is when I'm on somebody else's podcast, I'm not there with any scripted material. I'm just kind of like right off the top of my head, and I'll say something. And I made a couple jokes. Honestly, I was on the Black Powder podcast the other night, and Marcus, the podcast host, he is black, and I made some jokes in that vein. And I was sitting there, like, everybody laughed, but I was like, did I go too far maybe? Because, and those weren't even, like, those were still tame. Whatever I said on that show was still tame to what I might have said, what I'm capable of saying. And so, yeah, that's where we are at that. Anyway, let's see what else we got here. A lot of people are starting podcasts literally today. Like today? Like the 10th? That's cool. No, I was kidding. They will flop after the fourth episode. You're a pioneer since you've been already doing it for so long. I appreciate that. And it is true. Like, if you go look up the podcast metrics, they'll say some, like, I don't know the numbers, but it's like 50% of people never reach their 10th episode or something like that. The numbers are really rough. And I don't know why, but I made it to 700. And my goal right now is to make it to 1,000 before I decide to quit. Not saying I will decide. I'm just saying, like, I'm aiming to get 300 more in before I really have that conversation. But I will still continually evaluate. And it's possible that maybe 850 rolls around and I say, it's time to be done. Or maybe things in my life change and I have to be done. Who knows? But for now, that's my goal. Keith says, getting to the finish line is great. Winning is great. Who knows till the race is run? You're right. If you're running a race, I used to run cross country, not very well. I was very terrible at it, but I used to try to run cross country. And when I got to the end, it was a great feeling. There was no good feeling, for me at least, while I was running. I actually hate running. I don't even know why I did it when I was in high school, but I did. And but when I got to the finish line, it was great. It was a great feeling. Or when I cycle, which I really do enjoy, getting to the finish line is just a fabulous feeling. So you're absolutely correct. Let's see what we got here. I got comments on my page that Marcus is racist. Here's the thing. There's a lot of stick in the muds. I hate to use this term. We've woke ourselves into, like, stiffs. What we really need to do is learn to appreciate humor. There's a lot of, like, I think humor has a lot to tell us about who we are, about our relationships with other people. We can learn a lot from humor if we stop just whining about it. I see them all the time. Like, I'll watch reels on Facebook, and I'll come across a comedian that's making a joke, and I'm like, whoa, took that a bit far. And I'm not mad at him. I'm just like, wasn't expecting that. It is because even though I grew up on like Def Comedy Jam and Sam Kinison and all these folks back in the day that had some really, really, really raunchy humor, right? Even though I grew up on that, even I, despite the fact that I have a good sense of humor, even though I will sometimes be like, whoa, that's because I've kind of been trained that, hey, this is too far, you know? And but I still keep my appreciation for it. And sometimes I'll just watch something and I'm like, that's funny. I'm like, couldn't say that on a college campus. Let's see. I guess we need to get DL monetized before that 1K so he won't quit. I mean, you know, what do they say? Money talks. Get me monetized. Help me get there. How do you help me get there, folks? You tell everybody all about the show. Exaggerate if you have to, you know, kind of put on your Trump shoes and be like, wow, he's so great. He's better than anybody. I've never met anybody like him. He's the greatest. He's the best. You should totally watch Liberty Dad. Nobody like him. He's phenomenal. He's better than all the other ones. They're all low rate. I don't know if I did a good job with my impression. I've never actually practiced it. So if you're like, DL, that was a terrible Donald Trump impression, well, now you know why I don't do humor. Anyway, thanks for joining me today, folks. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you found it informative, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little inspiring. If you want to start a podcast yourself, dive right into it. If you want to have kids, dive right into it. It's so much fun. I'm telling you, you will enjoy it more than likely, especially the kids part. If you enjoyed this conversation, hey, do me a solid. I want you to head right on down to the comments, and I want you to let me know what you thought. Come back later. Do it later. Don't do it right now. Right? Come back later after the show's over. Come back and, you know, just give me your thoughts on something. Maybe I missed something important. Maybe you have a different take, a different perspective. Maybe you just want to give me a bunch of praise and say, wow, Liberty Dad, you're so great. Please don't ever stop. No. Make it to 7,000 episodes. Please don't stop. No. Right? Maybe that's what you want to do. That's cool. I'm not above it. Every comment, look, I'm telling you, they help the show grow, and I actually read them all. Thank you for hanging out with me today. And I will be back Monday with a fresh, brand new bill review. With that being said, I'm out. Have a good one. You know that I'm all about supporting organizations that hold my values. Make sure you head on over to blackgunsmatter.shop. They've got apparel, stickers, and more. Use the code LibertyDad, all one word, at checkout to score a 10% discount. Or just hit the referral link in the show notes. That'll make it so much easier. Remember, I'm not just a voice on a mic. I'm a dad who's working hard to deliver to you the best libertarian content. Connect with me on Linktree, where you'll find links to my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee, because, you know, every bit helps keep this show rolling. Plus, you can find me on my other platforms to stay in the loop. With your help, this show, The Message of Liberty, will be seen and heard by more people. As always, I appreciate you tuning in and look forward to seeing